Welcome back, y'all. This is video number 2 today, and I think that y'all will really enjoy this one. I'm going to be reacting to some parts of this article from On3 by Pete Nakos, and it's titled NIL Collectives, Staffers Share Top Spenders, Highest Paid 2025 Recruits. And in this article, what it looks like On3 did is they surveyed NIL collective members and also staff members from several Power 4 schools. So there's a whole lot of light that's going to be shed on this stuff. Tennessee will be brought up a few times. We'll see some of our players also brought up. And I think that y'all will find this one very interesting. So please do make sure to like and subscribe to the channel. We won't go through the entire article. We're just going to highlight some of the more interesting parts. All right, y'all, we're going to start off right here with who spent the most money on their 2025 class. And just to let you know, this article will be linked down in the description below. I recommend that you definitely check this entire thing out. So SEC collective number 1 is saying that Texas is the biggest spender, and Texas schools in general spend a whole lot of money on their NIL, and I'm definitely paraphrasing that. So Big 12 NIL collective is saying that Oregon is a big spender. They always are. Texas A&M is also a big spender. And then, of course, Ohio State and the Nebraska Cornhuskers, which is a school that they were obviously fighting for several players. So I wonder what school that is. The first one, I'm going to guess that that's probably Oklahoma. Now, the third one right here, SEC NIL Collective number 2, they're saying that Texas, Ohio State, and our Volunteers. So for those of y'all that don't think that Tennessee's NIL is, able to compete with some of these bigger programs, you're seeing it right here for yourself. People know us to be a team that will spend money in NIL. Well, we've told y'all that several times. I think that that really should be common sense at this point. So a Big 10 NIL collective number 1 is saying that Oregon and Ohio State are the biggest spenders regardless. So seen a whole lot of Oregon, Texas, and Ohio State. We've probably seen those 3 the most after we get past this next one right here with an ACC personnel staffer saying that Auburn spends a lot on recruiting, obviously Texas, and then you go some mix of Oregon and Texas A&M. So Texas A&M is also getting mentioned several times. This is the first and only time that we've seen Auburn mentioned, but I know that they're doing a good job with their NIL. I know that they will spend the money. Same thing that we said about Tennessee, even though we were only mentioned once within this first portion. All right, now let's take a look at who spent their money the smartest. From SEC NIL Collective 1, they're saying Georgia. A school like Georgia has the history where they can pay a little less. ACC Collective 1 is saying Georgia is pretty good with how they spend money. Kirby Smart is still able to play off that cachet that is Georgia. It's rare that they ever overspend. When these kids were growing up, Georgia was the program. Georgia's still probably the safest bet in college football if I want to play in meaningful games. So Georgia's coming up a couple of times right here. SEC NIL Collective 2 is saying probably Ohio State and Georgia. Georgia got some guys for a steal. Kirby really leaned into some old school stuff and getting guys to come at a discount. Very interesting. We talked about this a million times. ACC personnel staffer starts it off by, I'd say, Georgia. Florida, Miami, and Notre Dame, South Carolina, too. Shane Beamer has done a great job. So I would say with that ACC personnel staffer might be from Clemson just because they highlighted Beamer, who was at South Carolina. That's a really big rival. I know that they like to look at one another very, very closely. So I'm just kind of speculating right there. But as we've talked about so many times, Georgia is asking these kids to take a discount, which to me is an insult. I would never do that because, Kirby, are you going to take a discount? No, you're not. You're going to run up that number as high as you possibly can whenever your opportunity comes. So why would you ask me to take that discount? Now, Georgia obviously won the SEC championship this past year. They made it to the playoffs. Yeah, they made it to what, the second or third round? I don't know, whatever. But that was really just because they didn't have to play in any of those earlier rounds, and they lost. They, looked pretty bad doing so. And I think that they are actually kind of going backwards, even though it might feel, like it's slightly happening. If you look at them from now compared to 2022, they've dropped backwards tremendously. And I'm not too worried about Georgia anymore because people are starting to figure out, people are using their brain, right? They're using common sense. Why in the hell would I go, take a discount here at the University of Georgia where it's very dangerous? People are, drag racing and stuff. They're drinking and driving. I mean, that's a dangerous place to be. You want me to come take a discount to come play? Coach, if anything, you ought to be paying me more to come to your school. So I think that some people are starting to think of it that way, and that's a great thing for our Tennessee Volunteers. All right, next, who's the highest paid player in the class? And of course, this is from 2025. From SEC NIL Collective 1, they're saying Bryce Underwood and Justice Terry. Now, Bryce Underwood, we all know him going to Michigan. He got a really, really big deal. Justice Terry, who is going to Texas. I could definitely see that from ACC NIL Collective. They're saying David Sanders from our very own Tennessee Volunteers. Again, like we talked about, this is showing y'all that Tennessee is willing to spend the money. I don't know that David Sanders is the highest paid player. I do think it's probably Bryce Underwood. But we know that at least David Sanders is being mentioned, in this same ilk. That's a really, really good thing for Tennessee. I promise you that you want the reputation of a school that's willing to pay that money. The next one right here from SEC NIL Collective 2 is saying Bryce Underwood is the highest paid. Obviously, we all know that. There's another top 100 recruit I keep hearing crazy stories about, 5 acres of land that's under development. Did it to him if he stays at the school for all 4 years. Crazy stuff. He's going to get a percentage of the revenue from it. That right there is pretty interesting. I think that maybe could be David Sanders. I don't know. Y'all let me know what y'all think. Who do you think that this player is? I would love for Tennessee to take these types of angles. If you don't have the outright money, if you have some donors and boosters and stuff that have access to a lot of really good land, hey, let's use that. You know what I'm saying? Use that as some leverage, whatever it takes, man. This whole thing, I feel like it's getting pretty cutthroat. So ACC personnel staffer is saying Bryce Underwood. So Bryce Underwood was the consensus right here, and I would have to concur with that. David Sanders is probably up in that same realm, but, obviously quarterbacks are going to get the most money. All right, y'all. Next, what position has skyrocketed in value this last year? ACC NIL Collective 1 is saying linebackers have gotten ridiculous. A guy that you could get for $100,000 last year, schools are paying $800,000 for this cycle. Wide receivers, too. I think how much the freshman group of wide receivers this last season got paid has something to do with this. So I'm going to pause right here because, number one, it's crazy to see that the linebackers are getting that much love, but they are worth it, I think, with the way that football is being played now. Yeah, it's being spread out, so the cornerbacks, the safeties, all the secondary players are going to be really, really critical. But what we've also noticed is teams are starting to target the linebackers a lot more. They're trying to get them isolated down the field in coverage and all that type of stuff. So you want to have those linebackers that can do it all. And I think that this upcoming class for 2026 is going to be one of the deepest linebacker classes that we've seen in a long time, headlined by Tyler Atkinson, who I think is worth $1.5 to $2 million. You need to pay him like a quarterback because he is that special. And he's a guy that, honestly speaking, if he does the right thing and doesn't go to Georgia, who we've all seen are making these kids take these discounts and stuff, if he does the right thing, he could end up being the highest paid defensive player, according to, NIL standards in the history of the game. He could set a whole bunch of trends right here if he does the right thing, comes on up to Knoxville and plays with our Tennessee Volunteers. But also a wide receiver. We all know that there's going to be a very strong point of emphasis on that. It's just like the NFL. Everything that we see in the NFL right now, you can expect that, whatever the trends are there, it's just going to come on down to the college level probably a lot sooner than it would have previously, before NIL and all that type of stuff. Next, we have Big 12 NIL Collective. They're saying the offensive line or cornerback, from my perspective, quarterback has always been up there and wide receiver. And they're saying that it took a little while for the offensive line and the cornerback markets to catch up. But those are the two in this cycle that were asking for the most output, or they needed the most output. So that right there says a whole lot. Obviously, we know that offensive line is critical. I think the cornerbacks are also very, very critical. But for me, if you've got everything else in place, if you've got a good front seven, and if you've got, I would say, above average safety play, the cornerbacks don't have to be great. We saw that with the Ohio State Buckeyes because their cornerbacks were horrible. Okay, their cornerbacks were absolutely horrible. They just won a national title. So interesting there. I would not be surprised if this year's cycle, right, like maybe after this entire season, if that cycle does not put a little bit less of an emphasis on cornerbacks. And of course, I don't want to see that because I used to play corner. I want for them to get paid, but I'm just calling it like I see it. So next, from ACC NIL Collective 2, offensive tackle by far, and then secondary. At offensive tackle and secondary, it's closer to 3 or 4 times as much as it was compared to a year ago. So that's interesting. So we have two people kind of saying the same thing coming from different conferences. That is very interesting. Big 10 NIL Collective 1 is saying a quarterback comp has jumped through the roof. You're starting to see some big wide receiver numbers. It's jumping everywhere. Okay. That's cool to see. SEC personnel staffer saying wide receiver probably they're harder to get out of the portal, or they're harder to get in the portal. They're costing $500,000 to $900,000. So that probably goes to show why Tennessee has been a lot more selective in the transfer portal and not picking up these wide receivers that we didn't absolutely love. Now, like I've said before, I'm going to stick to this. I don't know if Tennessee is going to be able to upgrade from what we passed up in the first portion of the portal in the spring version of it, just because the players can only get so good. Like, you can't expect that a Jeremiah Smith or a Carnell Tate is going to be hitting the portal. And I do still feel like Tennessee had some inside noise or some inside rumblings saying that Cardinal Tate was going to entertain the portal, but you don't put all your eggs into one basket. So hopefully, I'm not going to say hopefully, we're going to have to go get another wide receiver coming up here in spring. And, they're probably going to be asking us for more than that. For more than that number, they're talking about 500 to 900,000. I think that we're probably going to have to pay close to $1 million for a solid wide receiver. If not, then we're just going to have to go out and get somebody that, even if they see the field, they're probably not going to be producing as much. So interesting stuff right there. All right, y'all, we just got a few more that we'll go over today. This next one is going to be, what does it cost to get an elite offensive tackle or edge from ACC NIL Collective 1? For a top edge, probably after this cycle, between $500,000 to $1 million, depending on the school and its budget. Very interesting. From NIL Collective 3, saying that edge rusher is a little bit cheaper, but premium offensive tackles are $500,000 at a minimum. $800,000 is more likely. And ACC NIL Collective is saying, depending on who they are and what they are, I think that you can still get an edge for $250,000 to $500,000. I mean, I guess that you can, right? Like if you want somebody that's not going to be that great, again, that's coming from an ACC school. I would not be surprised if that's NC State. That's an NC State thing to say. Now, they're also saying that a couple of those high-end guys were asking for $750,000 to north of $1 million. So for me, I would think that SEC caliber programs will pay a lot for edge rushers. And maybe that's just because whenever I think of edge rushers, I think of the SEC. Feels like that's where the best ones come from. It's like they either come from us or they come from Penn State, the Buckeyes every now and then. But that's pretty much what it is. So I think that in the SEC, we're willing to pay a little bit more for those guys because we want to get after those quarterbacks. But it does go hand in hand, right? Like you've got to, pay the quarterbacks first, pay the people who can, keep the quarterbacks from getting hit, which would definitely be their blind side tackle, so left or right tackle. And then you've got to go pay the guys who can get to the quarterback. Again, it's the same thing that we see in the NFL. But I'm happy to see these young kids making some real money for their services out here because it is long overdue. All right, y'all, we're going to go through two more sections of this article because I know that y'all will really like these final two. So right here, the first one's going to be, what is a recruit or portal player's highest ask from this cycle? From ACC NIL Collective, I had a transfer portal prospect asking for $2.5 million. Not that I would have done it at any position, but he isn't a quarterback, offensive tackle, or DN. It's the last position you would pay that type of money. Okay, so that's interesting. Again, the ACC, they kind of seem like the other ones that ain't paying that much. I don't think that they're going to be able to compete on the level that they need to. So ACC Collective 2 is saying, had someone ask for $3 million. That for some reason, that just does not seem too crazy to me. Big Ten NIL Collective 1 is saying, we had one a couple of years ago. That was a $14 million all-in ask. Now, that's a lot of money. But the kid ended up going elsewhere and has already transferred. Yeah, that sounds like a head case if you're going to ask for that much money. Now, some players will be coming up here very soon, y'all, that can probably ask for that much money, and they might not be head cases. I'm not saying it's a one-size-fits-all thing. All that I am saying is I have not seen a player just yet, maybe outside of Jeremiah Smith, that's currently in college, they could have asked for that much money, and, you didn't just laugh right in his doggone face, his or her face. All right, next, ACC personnel staffer is saying it's not a player we got. It's probably $1.1 to $1.2 million. So that is a joke. I don't know what school that is. I almost want to say that that's Georgia, even though I know that they've paid Carson Beck more money than that. But that's a very Georgia thing to say coming from the SEC. I can't think of anyone else that would look at $1 to $1.2 million and be like, wow, that's crazy, unless it was, this kid played, I don't know, some spot where I can't even think of any spot that wouldn't even work. Maybe he played center or something, maybe it was a center coming out of high school. That wouldn't really make too much sense. From ACC personnel staffer saying portal was funky. Bad players getting between 500 to 700,000 is crazy to me. Okay. Yeah, that is crazy. I hope that the market stays that way because my nephew's coming up soon. His chance is coming up, but those are some wild numbers. Like just to kind of see, it kind of feels like 500 to 700,000 is what the bad players were getting paid, or, maybe not bad, but the ones that weren't super, super great. So that's pretty cool for me to see. Some people might hate that though. All right, y'all, last one. And it's asking, are recruits asking for more amenities than ever? Big 12 NIL Collective is saying everybody wants a car. We deal with a lot of people asking for travel stipends for their families. That's actually not a bad idea. I mean, that travel can get very, very costly. He's saying that he or she is saying that became a big ask. People are asking to be put in a new apartment. And that makes a whole lot of sense. Like, where am I going to live at, coach? Or put up into a nice home or condo. That makes even more sense to me. They're also saying that, or he or she is also saying whatever it may be. That is a request that you're seeing more and more. Okay, so yeah, I mean that makes a whole lot of sense. That's coming from the Big 12. That doesn't sound like a program that's dealing with too much money, because those aren't even like that. That's not even like a crazy thing to ask for. So SEC NIL Collective 2 was saying, I've had more crazy things asked than ever before. Red carpet treatment, people wanting their families on charter flights to home and away games. Now that sounds a little bit much. That sounds crazy. They're saying that car service for the entire family to and from games and around town, stuff that nobody is doing. I mean, listen, somebody would do it. Let the right player come up to the right organization or to the right institution. I promise you somebody would be willing to do that. Next, from Big Ten NIL Collective 1, saying that college football has always been riddled with under-the-table amenity-style payments, especially in the SEC. That's funny that he wants to single us out. He or she wants to single us out, because the Big Ten's been doing the same thing. It's the same thing everywhere. If you got the money to pay it, even prior to it being legal, you are going to be doing that. And really, they were probably the worst at doing that, because they have the biggest big money donors and boosters and all that type of stuff. Either way, though, they're saying that family travel with auto and living stipends, but now the numbers are so significant that you are negotiating a top line number, and it's your decision on what to do with the money. No different than a pro football player. The asks are, they are getting out of control. So yeah, like I said, everything is going to pretty much be copycat. But yeah, some of the stuff that we just kind of talked about, some of the stuff is a little bit outrageous. You don't have to overdo it. For me, like, I don't really care too much about my family being driven around and stuff. But, I need a car, I need a place to live, and they're going to need some sort of, like they need to, have their travel covered as well, because they're having to come out of the pocket to come up and down the daggum road to see me or, whoever play. I just think that that's only fair, right? Like, if you are one of these really high caliber players, and I'm just speaking for the way that I would probably try to operate it, if it was just me doing it, then yeah, I mean, you got to take care of yourself and take care of your family with some basic needs. Some of this stuff is basic needs, but I don't need to be, like, none of us really need to be chauffeured, to and from games, and, taking on trips, all around campus. Like, we don't need that. I think that that is a bit much, just from my perspective. So next is SEC personnel staffer. They're saying that everyone wants a car lease. That's stupid. I don't want a car lease. I want to own the car. Okay. Like, I want to have the money put into my NIL so that I can buy a car and I own it. I don't want to lease nothing. Okay. I want this to be mine. That's the way that you need to start looking at this, ladies and gentlemen. So next, Big Ten NIL Collective 2 is saying that a lot of recruits are looking for transportation for their families to games. So I guess that's a pretty common thing. It's not something that I would necessarily ask for. Again, it's not about, hey, well, I don't need for you to drive them up there, but can you cover what they spent to get to and from? I think that you can at least do that. Next, ACC personnel staffer is saying definitely we're talking cars, travel for the family, private jet hours. We get a lot of guys asking for penthouse condos for $6,000 a month. Buddy, that's not that much money. Like, you're talking about $6,000 a month for what, 12 months out of the year? Okay, I mean, do it for 1 year and then, do it again for the next year if I decide to stay here. That's not that much money, okay? They can definitely swing that. All right, so let me keep that thing going. And they're also saying that every guy thinks that they need to be bought a car. We had a high school kid ask us to buy his parents a house, and it was a $450,000 house. Yeah, I mean, so that's ACC. Like I said, the ACC, I don't know how much longer they're going to be able to last with how things are going. They are struggling. At least the ones that they talk to inside this article, they're definitely struggling, because that's basic stuff. People need a place to live. Now, I'm not saying that your parents need a house, not for $450,000, but maybe you could help out with the down payment to the house, right? Either way, a lot of this stuff was just tongue in cheek for me, but hopefully y'all did have fun with it. Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section. And as always, please do make sure to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, share with your friends, family, and other volunteer fans. And we'll see y'all on the next one. Thanks. Peace.